My name is Dr. James Chen, and I've been an ER physician at Boston General for 8 years. What I witnessed during my overnight shift last December still makes my hands shake when I think about it. I've seen plenty of deaths, accidents, and trauma cases, but nothing could have prepared me for that night. It started around 3 a.m., what we call the dead hour in the ER. I was doing my usual rounds, checking on a college kid with a broken arm in bed 4, an elderly man with chest pain in bed 7, the usual cases. The fluorescent lights were buzzing overhead, and the antiseptic smell of hospital-grade disinfectant filled the air. That's when the code blue alarm went off in room 218. I grabbed my stethoscope and sprinted up the stairs, my white sneakers squeaking against the polished linoleum floor. The patient was Gregory Martinez, 47, post-op day 2 from a routine appendectomy. No complications, normal vitals just an hour ago. When I entered the room, something felt wrong. The cardiac monitor showed a systole, flatline, but there was no team there yet. Just Mr. Martinez, lying perfectly still, his skin already taking on that grayish pallor we doctors know too well. The room was freezing cold, and my breath came out in visible puffs despite the hospital's usually reliable heating system. I started compressions immediately, calling out for help, but my voice seemed muffled, like I was shouting underwater. That's when I noticed something that made me stop mid-compression. Mr. Martinez's hand was moving. Not the random twitches we sometimes see during CPR, but deliberate movement. His eyes were still closed, chest still, no pulse, clinically dead, but his hand was writing something on the bedsheet. My colleague, Dr. Mike Thompson, finally arrived with the crash cart. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw me staring at Martinez's hand. James, what the hell? The hand kept moving, using an invisible pen, writing the same words over and over. I leaned in closer and felt my blood run cold. The words being traced were, "He's standing right behind you." Mike must have seen something in my face because he turned around slowly. There was nothing there, just the empty doorway and the dimly lit hallway beyond. But the temperature dropped even further, and the cardiac monitor started going haywire, showing impossible readings. Then we heard it, the sound of wet footsteps coming from the ceiling above us, not the floor above, the actual ceiling of the room. The footsteps moved in a slow circle, leaving dark, glistening marks that disappeared seconds later. Mike backed away toward the door, but it slammed shut on its own. The overhead lights flickered, and in those split-second blackouts I swear I saw something, standing in the corner of the room. Tall, impossibly tall, wearing what looked like old-fashioned surgical scrubs, dark stains spreading across the fabric. The code team finally managed to force the door open. When the lights came back on properly, everything was normal. Mr. Martinez was dead. Time of death, 3:17 a.m. No hand movements, no writing, no footprints on the ceiling. Just another failed code in a hospital that sees too many of them. Later that night, I was doing my charts when Mike came to my station, looking pale. "You need to see this," he said, holding out his tablet. He'd pulled up Mr. Martinez's admission records. The admitting physician was listed as Dr. Thomas Crawford. "So?" I asked. "Dr. Crawford worked here in the 1960s, Mike whispered. "He was famous for his experimental surgeries. They say he killed dozens of patients before they caught him. He died in room 218, hung himself from the ceiling." I almost dropped my coffee, because right then, checking the death certificates I'd just filled out, I noticed something. The cause of death listed for Mr. Martinez wasn't cardiac arrest or surgical complications. In handwriting that wasn't mine. It read, "Failed experiment number 37, unsuitable vessel." 3 more patients died in room 218 that month, all at exactly 3:17 a.m. The hospital closed the room for renovations, but the construction workers refused to work there after dark. They said they kept finding old surgical instruments in the walls, still wet with something that looked like blood. I transferred to a different hospital last week, but sometimes, during the dead hour of my shift, I still hear the sound of wet footsteps above me, and every now and then, I catch glimpses of someone in old surgical scrubs, walking through walls, carrying a dripping scalpel, looking for suitable vessels.